Menstrual health and hygiene is considered as a concern and also a rights in India, but it has been largely unaddressed by the government, NGOs and business. So today we have Ms. Kartiyani, who is a assistant professor in Alliance University. Her research focus on menstrual justice in India. So ma'am, what is the status of health and hygiene in India?
So generally speaking, health and hygiene is still, we have a lot of long way to go when we talk about health and hygiene in general, because let's just get out of college and look into our streets. It's still very dirty at times. Even, not just the cities, the rural areas we can't even think about. Being in a city, a metropolitan city like Bangalore, still we can see waste scattered all over, and related health issues that we all face every time, particularly in metropolitan cities like Bangalore, Delhi. We see it every year and it's still not changed. So we have a long way to go when we talk about health and hygiene in general. Yes.
So what about menstrual health?
Oh, menstrual health is a particular nuanced area in itself. It's something that you and me, we know what menstruation is because we experience it every month. It's not just about experiencing the lived experiences of menstruation. It's also about how many women and how many menstruators out there know what exactly is happening to them when this biological process happens. We might have been exposed to this phenomenon at the age of, say, maybe 9 to 11. Everybody would enter what we call as menarche, that is the initiation of menstruation. So from that period, maybe you and me, because we belong to, I would call it the privileged category, we had a quite good idea as to what is happening to us at this particular juncture when our body started changing. We started bleeding every month. So you and me, we had the privilege to know what is happening. But what about the women and other menstruators out there who do not know, because they are not aware of this as a biological process? That's a very natural, normal biological process. Nobody might have educated them about this. So there are many women and other menstruators out there who are not aware of it. So talking about menstrual health, that is the point where we have to, draw our attention to, about people who do not know about what menstruation is or what menstrual health is, or why menstrual health and access to hygiene products is their right. It's not just a general biological issue anymore. It's a right, and it's a right based discussion that should happen. Unfortunately, still many people in our country are not open to such discussions. And even if, governments and other policy framework is starting to discuss about menstruation, I don't think it has reached a point where it will achieve the intended goal of, menstrual health and hygiene as intended by universal frameworks like, or global frameworks like, WHO. So we have a long way to. I'm not talking just about India as a country. Even in other developed nations, it's still a hushed issue. So I think we have a long way to go. But in countries, including India, discussions have started, and certain policy frameworks are in progress. But I don't think we are there yet, because many women, once you start talking to women, not just rural, I'm not talking about rural areas, even in metropolitan cities, who don't know what happens to them, and they don't know that it's their right to ask for certain, maybe menstrual products or menstrual health leaves. So that's where I think our attention should be kind of diverted to. Yes.
So, well, when we talk about menstrual health, so there is a recent debate for the leave for the menstrual health, and also Karnataka has took forward for that steps.
Mm.
So, what is your intake on that, ma'am?
Yeah, I definitely appreciate the Karnataka state government's move to at least come up with a policy that mandates menstrual health leave, both for women, both in public as well as private sector. That's a very good move that should be appreciated. But still, I feel it is not yet. I don't know how far it has been implemented, because I personally know certain private companies, some of my friends, and where my friends and family work, they have already introduced menstrual health leaves as part of their leave protocol. But there are other private institutes as well as public organizations that are yet to address this matter despite a policy being introduced. So I think we already have an implementational issue in our hand. How many organizations are ready to acknowledge it? So if you ask me, how many of us are even aware of this
Yes.
particular policy that has been introduced by the Karnataka state? Many of us living in Karnataka might not be aware of it.
Yes.
That's exactly the problem that we need to address. How far are we gonna, you know, expand and enhance the fact that this is something that needs to be talked about? Many might see that, oh, it's menstruation, why a leave for it? Isn't it again discriminatory based on gender?
Yes.
We speak about gender discrimination, then there might be a side that might say that giving special leaves to women is again gender discrimination for men. But the bigger issue that needs to be addressed is it's not just about dealing with menstrual cramps. Menstruation is not just about menstrual cramps.
Yes.
You know it, I know it. It's not just about menstrual cramps. It's also about the emotional and the physical, torment that a woman has to undergo during that period of 3 to 4 days or 4 to 5 days. So that is why it has to be addressed as an imperative that every organization gives such a leave. Maybe one day that's enough for them to maybe replenish their energy and rejuvenate themselves. But again, when we talk about menstruation and menstrual health leaves, it again goes to such privileged people who work in the organized sector. There again, something that goes unaddressed is the this issue. How are they dealt by the gig workers? For
Yes.
example, there are women and other menstruators who work in the gig industry. What about them? Who's going to grant them leaves? What about their menstruation as a right, menstrual
Yes.
health as a right? So this again is an unaddressed issue. But we should always look at the silver lining that at least from a point where menstruation was a hushed matter, state governments are taking initiatives to make it a policy, part of their policy, to come up with, guidelines that make it a mandate to give some kind of a leverage to women during that point of time. But if you ask me, is that enough? Giving them leaves? Should we stop our discussion about MHH at this point? I don't think so. I think menstruation and leaves for menstruators is one aspect of it. Another aspect that we are yet to address for properly is access to sanitation products. So many people still think that going to rural areas, giving kids belonging to that particular group, say 6 to 12, giving them sanitary products, there ends menstrual hygiene. No, it's not just about giving them access to some random sanitary product. It's also educating them about how it's their right to, talk about menstruation, even in, their education institution or the place there where they work. So it's still a hushed issue even amongst women who work in formal sectors or informal sectors. Take, for example, I was just having a conversation with my colleague earlier that even despite being very much educated and a person who is actually researching in this area, still on a day when I'm menstruating unexpectedly, if I have to ask for a sanitary pad from my colleague, female colleague, I still hush down. Do you have a sanitary pad? I, after asking that question, I feel like, why am I hushing myself down? It's still something, it's normal, like, give me a pencil or do you have a pen?
Yes.
It's something that's very normal, but even despite a woman coming from such a privileged background, I feel that we are still hushing it down a lot. So why that block? Why are women of our age conditioned to talk about menstruation that way? So if this is the situation with women who are educated and who are formally employed, what about uneducated masses who are not employed in a formal setup? Not just about employed, even girls going to school. Now talk about educational systems. Uh, there's a huge issue of girls dropping out of educational institutions because they don't know how to handle themselves when they are menstruating in school. There's absenteeism. We call it absenteeism, wherein girls don't go to school during these 4 or 5 days. They miss out on their education. So parallelly, when they are missing out on access to, when they're missing out because of these lack of awareness, they're also missing out on their other rights, like right to education and right to a good employment, because they are missing out school just because of this biological phenomenon. They're scared about it. They see it as a taboo. They don't have a good product that would protect them during that time. There are still a lot of girls and menstruators who use clothes to, deal with menstruation. That is a sad reality. And I'm not just talking about India as a country, there are other countries, developed nations also, where this is a huge issue. But in India, when we are talking about India, we should, of course, appreciate, like I mentioned, the good moves taken by state governments like state government of Karnataka. But at the same time, we have to address other states where this has not yet been addressed. There are a lot of states out there in India where this issue is not talked about. When it's introduced as a discussion point, there are people who say that it's nothing to be discussed about. What is nothing lot to discuss about it. So that's the base root problem that needs to be addressed. That, reluctance to still talk about menstruation. That is something that we need to be addressed. And the policy is welcomed, but I am still awaiting how it gets implemented uniformly in the state of Karnataka. Yes.
So when we talk about menstrual health as well as hygiene, so why do you think it has been considered as a public health?
Menstruators are part of the public, right?
Yes.
We are very much part of the general public, and if it's an issue that a majority of the public, we call mass of population of that group, faces, then it becomes a general issue, because parallelly the issues faced by menstruators will also affect their families, the people who are not menstruating. So if a woman falls sick during this time because of cramps or whatever it may be, it parallelly affects everything that is connected to her. So therefore it becomes a public issue. Yes.
So what are the major policy intervention that has been India has undertaken for the menstrual health and hygiene?
So talking about, if you're asking me about a law, we don't have a uniform law that is, talking about menstruation. But yes, Supreme Court has come up with verdicts to, come up with a uniform national level policy, etc. But there are state governments, like we were talking, the state government of Karnataka and certain other states that have come up with policies, but they are still only at the policy level. For us, what would bring in a good change would be a dedicated legislation that has a uniform application across the nation, because this is a uniform issue that every menstruator in the country faces. So we are yet to reach there. We have, of course, there are policy regulations and guidelines in different states, but they are all very scattered. We need something that is uniform, because this is a problem that everybody faces. Men and women would face it, because a woman falling, sick is parallelly going to affect the man associated in that family. So it's not just a women's issue anymore, it is a public issue. So I suggest what would be a better change would be a uniform level, a national level policy. Otherwise, the reluctance to implement, like we can see in the state of Karnataka, the government has come up with a policy, but there is still some reluctance to implement it in many public as well as private organizations. Unless it's a uniform central legislation, changes won't happen. So I think that is something that we are yet to reach.
So what prompted the demand for the national for the menstrual leave as well as the health and hygiene?
Very thing that we were discussing so far, it is something that affects a woman's whole life during those 3-4 days. Every aspect of it is affected. Like we talk, it's not just bleeding out of your vagina, it's also about the emotional and the hormonal imbalance a woman undergoes, the physical exertion that she has to put in during that time and its implications, and of course the lack of access to such products. Good, how many of us can afford such products? That is a question. Because the good branded ones that we talk about are very expensive for even a person who is formally employed. So these issues are something that needs to be debated. Therefore, that might be one of the reasons why the Supreme Court itself has addressed this matter.
So why do you think there is a lack of legal provisions or like any of the acts that has been there or why
It
there
is, I feel it's just a lack for now, but we are developing. We will reach there eventually, is what I see. But everything takes time, so let's wait, because good steps are taken up by certain state governments. So let's hope and wait for the best to happen in the national level. So if one country can change, that can be, you know, a good example for the other countries to, you know, adopt from. There are countries where such policies are implemented so far. So yes, I think good changes are coming. So let's hope for the best.
so
Yes.
is there any like particular reason for there is no menstrual like policies that has been taken,
As
or there is any rules or anything that has been done?
I don't think there is a singular reason for it. There might be, administrative delays or red tapeism, whatever it might be. There might be multitude of reasons, but whatever the reason may be, it's high time I think we come out of it as an entity, as a nation, and address the matter. Unless the policymakers start taking it up as a very serious issue, like any other issue at hand, things won't change. I don't think there's a singular reason for it. So, whatever it may be, it's high time they come across it. Because to end our discussion, what I can only expect is I welcome the, or we all should welcome the good initiative taken by state government here. But I think the organizations should have that kind of a, you know, push to see it as a matter that needs to be addressed. Like you grant maternity leave, it's also very important that women get, if they need, they feel they need a break on their menstruation, please implement the policies that way. Do not assume it to be a form of gender discrimination, but it is only, you know, an effort to address this as a rights based issue. So I think that effort taken by any state government should be appreciated. So at hand, because we have a good policy introduced, I think the benefits of it should be weighed, and such, you know, benefits should be given to the, you know, people who actually require it at that point of time. So as of now, we can end our discussion saying that let's hope for better change with respect to menstrual health and hygiene in our whole nation, not just isolated to particular states.
Thank you, ma'am. We are privileged to have you here and have a good discussion on menstrual health and hygiene.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much, Hita.